Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Hope you're all doing well and keeping safe on this Tuesday. We've got a lot to get into as expected. Thiago Silva, Kai Havertz, Ben Chilwell, updates on all of those transfers, plus a little bit on pre-season as well. It's going to be a big video because there's so much Chelsea news at the moment. It's very exciting. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also hit that like button if you're enjoying the content because it helps out the channel as well. Let's start off with Thiago Silva. It looks very close now and very sort of inevitable that he will be a Chelsea player. Fabrizio Romano last night giving us a here we go, an official here we go. We got two here we goes yesterday. Very exciting day for Chelsea fans and transfer news here. Thiago Silva to Chelsea. Here we go. The Brazilian centre-back today has accepted Chelsea bid until June 2022. He's going to leave PSG and sign for the next 2 years. No chances for Fiorentina, so that was another club that could have been in for Thiago Silva. Deal to be completed on next days. And then Fabrizio Romano followed this up by saying after Thiago signing, Chelsea will consider to loan for Kaio Tomori. We've spoken about this on the channel before, and also talks about Bakayoko to AC Milan being in advanced talks, Emerson potentially to Inter, and also Ben Chilwell deal with Leicester, which we'll come on to in the video as well. David Ornstein from The Athletic, Brazil centre-back Thiago Silva to Chelsea, a done deal, contract 1 year plus option of another that can be triggered by either side, scheduled to undergo medical this week. So a bit of conflict over the actual length of the contract to Thiago Silva, either 2 years or one with an option to extend for a further year. Wages seem to be over sort of 100k a week, 105k a week reported in some places. My feelings on this transfer have quickly sort of altered, I think, and shifted. This transfer has been very quick, very swift by Chelsea in a number of days. We heard about this last week following PSG's semi-final win, whether they were going to be interested in Thiago Silva. It was more reported that Thiago Silva had been offered to Chelsea, but then late last week got reported by The Athletic and David Ornstein that Chelsea was seriously considering it, and by the time the Champions League final was done, it looked like Chelsea had got there, and Thiago Silva was going to be moving to Stamford Bridge. I think it's once again proof of the efficient and effective transfer business by Chelsea this summer. No messing around, and I think it's a very smart, pragmatic move by Chelsea, opportunistic in a way, because looking at other centre-back options, Declan Rice is the name everyone talks about, right? And it does seem to me it's going to be a bit like the Ben Chilwell situation. I think that is Frank Lampard's first choice. I think the club want that player. And I think Declan Rice probably will inevitably become a Chelsea player in the future. But they may have to wait a little bit longer to get him at Chelsea, considering the amount of money we've spent on a number of players. And I just think the fact that we need a centre-back, what do Chelsea need? I've spoken about this a lot on the channel. What do Chelsea need from a centre-back? We need someone who's mature, a bit of a leader, experience, can sense danger, can maybe organise a defence on the pitch as well, be that leader on the pitch. And I think Thiago Silva could definitely bring that to our backline as well, the class of the player as well. I mean, there's some people who watch him regularly in France who still consider him one of the best centre-backs in the world, still consider him a world-class player. And if you watch that Champions League final on Sunday, I always want to caveat this by saying just watching one game of a player and judging them off that, I think, is a very dangerous thing to go by. But basing it off of the opposition on that night, Bayern Munich being one of the most ferocious and impressive attacks in European football at the moment, the fact he didn't look exposed, didn't look isolated, I think performed very well on the night, I think was very impressive. And I think he's a motivated player to come to the Premier League and prove himself once again. Could be just what Chelsea need, even in the short term, as they wait for a longer term option. And I also think don't dismiss age. I think age is something I speak about because I definitely felt that you watched this channel for a number of months. I spoke about age more in the sense that I think especially in attacking areas, Chelsea need to refresh that area and have refreshed that area now. But look at last season. Look at some of our best performers last season. Willian, Olivier Giroud, Cesar Azpilicueta, older players within the squad stepping up. You need that experience, especially when you lose the likes of Pedro and Willian, who've been elder figures in the dressing room for a number of years now. And I think we needed to replace that. And maybe Thiago Silva can bring that to Chelsea's dressing room. I think younger defenders will look up to Thiago Silva, what he's done in his career. And I think that's a big thing to have. JT played some of the best years of his Chelsea career at the age of 34, 35. I know Thiago is going to be about 36 in September, but that could be another thing as well. I think sometimes you need those older players, and Manuel Neuer at the age he was and Thiago Silva at the age he was, two of the best performers in the Champions League final on Sunday, with a lot of younger players in attack on that game that people were looking out for. So I think it's an impressive move. I think it's one that pleases me. Hopefully Thiago Silva, the only question mark is how's he going to adapt to Chelsea, the high line, and also the intensity of the Premier League. That's something we're going to have to wait and see. But please let me know your opinions on this deal in the comments below. Let's move on now to to Kai Havertz, I spoke about him yesterday. The big breaking news at Chelsea, very close to signing Kai Havertz. Here from Fabrizio Romano and Jacob Steinberg, Chelsea close to 90 million Kai Havertz deal and expect to land Thiago Silva as well. Chelsea on the verge of an agreement with Bayer Leverkusen over a 90 million deal for Kai Havertz. Havertz, who agreed a 5-year deal, had made it clear he wanted to leave Leverkusen following their failure to qualify for the Champions League. Chelsea had an initial offer of 65 million euros plus 15 million euros in add-ons rejected last week. Chelsea are expected to pay an initial 80 million euros plus 20 million in add-ons. The deal would represent a coup for Lampard, who was keen for greater quality in attack after losing Eden Hazard to Real Madrid last summer. So the reported fee at the moment, as I spoke about yesterday, it seems to be 72 million in pounds. So it still looks like it's going to be probably still the biggest in Chelsea's history, which is what I expected. Performance add-ons appear to take it up to sort of close to 100 million, which is what Bayer Leverkusen originally wanted for Kai Havertz. That negotiating has been going on for a long time. I mean, originally it was 20 million, it seemed to be away valuation by both clubs, and then it's gone down to 10, down to 5, and now we're on the brink of Kai Havertz becoming a Chelsea player. Great negotiating once again by Marina. I think that's the thing that you have to understand about a deal of this magnitude. Liam Toomey was speaking about this on the Straight Out of Cobham podcast for The Athletic, which I definitely suggest you go and listen to. And, you know, the magnitude of this deal, how big it is for Chelsea, the amount of moving parts in a deal like this is not just like a release clause. It's not a simple deal to get over the line. This could be a massive player for Chelsea in the future. Quietly, and getting that fee down has been brilliant for Chelsea. Getting it done so swiftly as well. You look at the trouble that it's a different situation with a different player, but Man United are having with Borussia Dortmund to get Jadon Sancho over the line. Look, the difference between that and also Chelsea getting Kai Havertz over the line. I think it just says so much about Chelsea this summer, how serious they are to get big deals over the line. I want to shout out this thread by Expected Chelsea, an account I've shouted out on the channel before. Definitely suggest you go and follow his account because he breaks down a lot of the numbers around Chelsea targets. And this one here, sort of going into Kai Havertz, a great thread last night. Kai Havertz, a real multi-dimensional talent, and he sort of goes into the XG, sort of the creativity of Kai Havertz, how there's so much in his game still to grow, which is so exciting and exhilarating to think about coming into Chelsea, how he can improve over the years, and considering how good and impressive he is now as a talent. And also, where does Kai Havertz fit in at Chelsea? I mean, that's something we speak about as well. The versatility, adaptability of a player like Kai Havertz could play in a variety of positions in a 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1, 3-4-3, 4-4-2 potentially, right wing, centre forward, attacking midfielder, central midfielder. All of these things that he could do, I think, is really exciting for Chelsea. Hopefully this deal will be announced sooner rather than later. I think it's that big breakthrough we were waiting for. This is absolutely massive for Chelsea. If you haven't watched my video yesterday where I spoke about the breaking news, gave my opinion sort of generally on the transfer, please go and watch that. It'll be up in the cards. Now an update on Ben Chilwell. John Percy here for The Telegraph this morning, tweeting the update on Ben Chilwell and Chelsea. 50 million deal agreed with Leicester, and Chelsea have no long-term concerns with the heel injury, so the move should be completed in the next 3 days. Chilwell will sign a 5-year contract. This account, The Secret Scout, which has a lot of good info and inside info regarding transfers, definitely suggest you go and follow him, was suggesting yesterday that Ben Chilwell was in London having his medical. There was a bit about concern over his injury, current injury, but that's not going to halt the deal. It won't stop the deal going through for Chelsea, which is good news. So that is expected to be announced very soon as well. So I just want to give you that update as well. Another thing for me, 15 million for a player that could have been going for 80 million this summer. I think there are, of course, factors that we spoke about before that have meant that the fee has been lowered, but I still think at the same time, it's another massive move in an historic week for Chelsea. So hopefully we'll see Ben Chilwell holding the Chelsea shirt very soon. And lastly, before we wrap up, I just wanted to talk about pre-season training. Training commenced recently, and there were some photos yesterday released by the club of players back in training. We saw the likes of Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech, Olivier Giroud, Cesar Azpilicueta, Mateo Kovacic, all back in training. The thing I wanted to point out was Nazar Kinsella tweeted last night that Chelsea had scheduled a friendly with Brighton this Saturday, a pre-season friendly with Brighton. It might be cancelled for obvious reasons, of course, because we opened the season away to Brighton. And it still seems very unclear from the club if Chelsea are going to have any pre-season friendlies or pre-season friendlies. They will have, I'm sure, some warm-up games like they did before Project Restart, but just if any of them will be broadcast to the fans, I think that's a big thing for me, especially with all these signings coming in, how exciting it is for fans potentially to see the likes of Werner, Ziyech, Havertz, Chilwell, Silva play for the first time for Chelsea. I think that's something that hopefully the club will do. I'm sure there'll be a backup friendly for Chelsea, potentially at Cobham, which is what they've done recently as well. But it's just looking at other clubs, Liverpool, Tottenham, Everton, broadcasting their friendlies. I'd personally like to see it for Chelsea because it would be exciting to cover it on the channel, and I'm sure for you guys as well, to look at some of the new players, maybe the formation for the season. It's going to be so congested. That's my only concern with with a lot of these players coming in, how exciting it is to think of sort of the long-term sort of benefit of a player like Timo Werner, Ziyech, who I'm sure will be much more adapted because they've been at Cobham for a number of months now. But bringing in these players for that opening game, I just worry because we've got maybe 1 or 2 friendlies and then an international break on the first weekend of September. And then the following weekend, we start the Premier League season away to Brighton and we're right into it. So it's going to be difficult. It's going to be congested. That's why I think there's going to be so much rotation this year, and why I think for some of these players, especially the recent ones coming in, Chilwell, Silva, Havertz, got to be sort of expectant, and they're going to take some time to adapt, probably more than Werner and Ziyech will. But hopefully we'll get an update from the club very soon on pre-season friendlies, and if there are pre-season friendlies, I will be covering them on the channel. So that's the news on pre-season. But that is it for this edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch it. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea. Have a great day, and I'll see you again.